You may wonder why I have brought you here.
Welcome back to the dark side, everyone on YouTube. Darth Vader's coming back at you with another video today, and today we're going to be reacting to more scary animated stories. I know what some of y'all are thinking. Didn't I just upload a video yesterday? Well, I kind of want to ended the year with a video, and I don't know when this week I'll be uploading my first video of 2024. But we'll get into the details on that later on, if ever. So without further ado, let's jump right into it, shall we?
In October of 2018, Phoenix Luna visited Yuka Takaoka's bar. Just like Yuka, Phoenix was a host at a club called Fusion that was located nearby. The only difference was that its clients were women. Apparently, Yuka immediately became interested in the handsome 20-year-old, so much so that she began to visit Phoenix's club regularly. Yuka was not shy to use her money to spend time with her crush. Reportedly, Yuka Takaoka used as much as 1 million yen, or about $10,000 a week, quickly making Phoenix one of the highest-ranking hosts in the club. Although dating between a client and a host was not allowed, Yuka and Phoenix began to see each other outside work, and even then, Yuka was the one paying for everything. Thing is that Yuka was not really a rich girl. She had a nice amount of money saved up on her account, but she quickly used all of that to be with Phoenix. And when Yuka realized she was living way beyond her means, she turned to other, more drastic sources of income instead of slowing down. While Yuka's job at the club had been to entertain without any aspects, she now began to go on dates with older men and did something called delivery health. As prostitution is illegal in Japan, ordering a health girl to your home is a way to bend the rules. Technically, only intercourse in exchange for money is prohibited, which is why the health girls provide any other kind of services to their customer. But of course, as what happens behind closed doors is not monitored, many girls offer full service to get more money, and Yuka was not an exception. Even though Yuka did all of that to be happy with her crush, she was slowly but surely destroying her mental health in the process. There was no doubt Phoenix enjoyed spending time with Yuka, and she wanted to visit him at the club. After all, she was willing to spend a huge amount of money on him and take care of all expenses wherever they went. When Yuka then confessed her love to Phoenix in April of 2019, he replied by saying he liked her too. He planned to quit his job and move in with her, and then they would get married. To Yuka, those words were like a drug. She was addicted to Phoenix and did not want anything else in the whole world. However, the problem was that Phoenix never lived up to his promises. In May of 2019, Yuka paid a 2 million yen down payment for an apartment close to the Fusion Club and bought Phoenix a Honda for another 2 million yen, as he had requested. Meanwhile, Phoenix continued working as a host and started dating other women. He was seen by Yuka's friends with a number of girls outside of work, which suggested they were not his clients. In addition, when Yuka would call Phoenix, she often heard other girls giggling in the background, and still, she wanted to make it work. On May 20th, 2019, Yuka and Phoenix visited a shop called Nitori before heading to their new apartment. Yuka had most likely been very excited to spend the first night together in their new home, but her mood quickly changed as Phoenix did not pay any attention to her. Instead, he was on his phone and sleeping the whole time, leaving Yuka hurt, frustrated, and increasingly desperate. She had been building this fantasy world in her mind with Phoenix by her side, but when the relationship did not work similarly in real life, Yuka's obsessive love took a dark turn.
Oh boy.
3 days later, on May 23rd, Yuka talked with her coworker about her problems with
Big
Phoenix
mistake.
and the lack of affection from his side. Yuka tried to call Phoenix as they were supposed to meet up, but instead, she found out he had made plans with another female client from the club. At that moment, Yuka's entire world shattered. Phoenix had originally said he would come to Yuka's apartment around noon, but he showed up at about 3 p.m. Apparently, the two chatted for a bit before Phoenix had a bath and lay down for a nap to recharge after a night of work. Nothing in the earlier conversation could have prepared him for what was about to happen. While Yuka has not said anything, she had actually gone through Phoenix's phone and found an intimate photograph of him with another woman.
Oh boy.
Confirming her worst fear. Feeling more desperate than ever before, Yuka made sure Phoenix was asleep before she walked to the kitchen, grabbed the knife, and headed to the bedroom. There, she got on top of the sleeping young man and plunged her knife into his stomach.
Oh.
As Phoenix awoke to this strange, uncomfortable feeling, he saw the large knife in his stomach, the blood on the bed sheets, and Yuka standing there staring at him and asking if he loved her. Terrified, Phoenix replied by saying he did love her and would stay with her forever. But as soon as Yuka relaxed a bit, Phoenix grabbed his phone, hit her in the face, and ran out of the apartment.
Damn!
Unfortunately, he just did not get that far. By the time Phoenix reached the first floor lobby, he had lost so much blood that he collapsed to the floor and passed out. The last thing Phoenix saw before everything went black was Yuka kneeling over him. When the police arrived at the scene shortly after, at about 3:50 p.m., they found Yuka Takaoka covered in blood, sitting next to her bleeding victim while casually smoking a cigarette and talking on her phone. Yuka showed little to no emotion or remorse.
The real life Yandere case. I need to pay more attention to the title. I had heard about this when scrolling on TikTok the other day, and yeah, as everything is going down in this video thus far, this is pretty messed up.
Morris when she was arrested, although another picture that was taken while she was sitting in the back of a police car captured her with a huge, excited smile as if she was proud of what she had done. When police then questioned her motives, Yuka replied, "I thought that was how I could be with him." Meanwhile, a severely injured Phoenix was taken to the hospital, where he remained in critical condition for 5 days. The doctor only gave him a 20% chance of survival. To everyone's surprise, he eventually recovered. As soon as Phoenix was released from the hospital, he tweeted. In an interview, he said he did not hold a grudge against Yuka, and even agreed she had a reason to stab him. According to Phoenix, he had always seen his relationship with Yuka as a host-client kind of thing, and had never agreed to be exclusive. Yuka pleaded guilty to...
So, in order to avoid such things like this, you need to ask, it's like, hey, this isn't a client host kind of relationship, is it? Is this, are you looking to be serious? Like, have a serious, legitimate relationship with me?
all charges at the Tokyo District Court. On December 3rd, 2019, she was sentenced to 3 years and 6 months. Phoenix asked the court to give her a lighter sentence after receiving a 5 million yen settlement. The judge saw Yuka's actions as incredibly selfish, and due to her clear intention to kill, prison time was unavoidable. She will be released sometime in 2023 or 2024.
So, at the time, I discovered the real life Yandere story. Yuka has already been released from prison. She has actually become a cosplayer and a streamer, I believe. I forget the full details of what it's said that she's doing now, but a cosplayer is one of those things. This is her YouTube channel here. There's the link. I will provide the link to the channel in the description. She doesn't have many videos. She's relatively new to what she's doing now. She has a total of 3.93, almost 4,000 subscribers, but I'm not sure if it's because, of the content that she posts or if because people know who she is. So with that in mind, I ask you guys to please subscribe. Like I said, I'm going to provide the link to her channel in the description down below. Please subscribe to her channel. Don't bring up anything negative. Don't bring up anything about the stuff that she's done. Give her as much support possible. Because it's clear she's learned her lesson and she is working to turn her life around. So, again, I highly recommend no one bring up anything negative about her past. Just subscribe to her channel, give her as much support possible. I believe her social media links will be in somewhere. I'm not sure where, somewhere. So be sure to follow her on all of her social media. So put out positivity. Do not put out negativity. That's all I ask. Next video.
This story took place when I was roughly 5 or 6 years old. My baby sister had just been born a year prior to this story. My parents had also just been divorced, so my mom and stepdad moved me and my sisters into this new house. This house had been built on a hillside in West Virginia in the mid-1800s. It was made out of dark wood that almost gave you an ominous feeling just looking at it.
Lovely.
The house had 3 stories. The front door was at the middle story, where our bedrooms and living room were. Upstairs was the attic, but the entrance to it was a pulley door. Downstairs was the kitchen, laundry room, back door, and then a mysterious room. This mysterious room was the only room in the house with a metal door. Cold air would seep from below it, and it had a padlock that only my mom and the landlord had keys for. The landlord referred to it as the boiler room. My bedroom was located directly above the boiler room.
Lovely.
And it also had the pulley door for the attic on my ceiling.
Oh, God.
It didn't take too long before strange things began happening to each member of my family individually. But it began with me. There would be times when I'd leave the room for a minute, and then return minutes later to find things moved out of place. Hordes of wasps and other things would come out of the attic and act in strange ways, always remaining in my room. I wouldn't learn this detail until years later, but my mom and stepdad apparently heard footsteps in the living room, walking in circles almost every night, usually only when one of them was still awake. A skeptic would say that my things being moved was my older sister playing tricks, that the insects were normal, and that the footsteps were creaky wood. However, one night, I woke up and felt like someone was in the room with me. I turned over and saw a little boy standing there, shrouded in darkness. I could only see his silhouette, but he appeared to be the same size as me. So I said, "Hello." The boy answered back and told me that he was from the boiler room and asked if he could play with my toys. I told him no because it was too late and I didn't want to get in trouble. For a brief moment after that, I could make out the boy's expression. My rejection was met with a gaze of pure rage. And then, in an instant, the boy was gone. I told my mom and stepdad about it the next day. They seemed nervous about it, but then they just reassured me that it was a bad dream. Even as a little kid, I was good at reading people. So I could tell that they were holding something back, but I let it be. That night, something else happened. I awoke again to the feeling that I wasn't alone. This time, whenever I turned around, I was met with something sinister. The silhouette of an elderly woman stood hunched over my bed, her face inches away from mine, breathing on me.
Nah.
Where her eyes should have been, there was only darkness. I got up and ran past her, opened my door, and hurried over to my sister's room. My older sister was away at a sleepover, so it was just my baby sister in her crib asleep. When I turned back to the doorway, I saw the woman walking towards me slowly. As she walked past the window, lightning crashed outside. And then, in that instant, the woman was gone. And where she was, it appeared that a wolf was approaching me instead.
Nah, bro.
For a second. And as I looked back down, the lightning crashed again. And after that flash, I saw spiders on my pillow. I turned to look back to the spirit. And after the next flash, the little boy appeared again. As he got closer and closer to me, I passed out. I woke up in my bed again, drenched in sweat. Many questions raced through my mind at that moment. Soon after telling my mom and stepdad about that experience, we moved out. According to what the landlord told my mom whenever she confronted him about the paranormal experiences, a widowed mother and her 3 children had lived in the house when it was first built.
Why was that one so fucking angry?
At some point not too long after, the mother snapped and murdered all 3 of her children in the living room of the house, and then stashed their bodies in the boiler room.
The fuck?
Those deaths perfectly explained why fast footsteps had been heard in the living room, why my
In a
toys
circle.
and stuff were moving on their own, and why I saw a little boy and an evil woman. It also perfectly explains why we moved out so fast after I told my mom and stepdad about seeing the woman. To this day, I sometimes ask myself, what drove that woman to do it? Grief? Loneliness? Insanity? I'll never know. But another question I have is, if she was willing to do that to her own children, what would she have done to a child that wasn't even hers? What would have happened if my sisters and I had stayed at that house?
You don't want to know. But the short version is you'd be dead. As is the case with all of these stories. You'd be dead. All right. I'm going to have a look at this story. I don't know if we've checked out this one.
My name is Vasuntara, and I'm from India. I have been following your YouTube channel for quite some time now, and thought of sharing a story with you. In 2009, my father, who's now retired, was in the Air Force. The cantonment was an old palace donated to the state by the royal family of Baroda. It had a violent past, especially during the British Raj, involving murders of both Indian and British soldiers.
Oh, wow.
The house that we were staying in was not in good shape, but we had to take it because there was no other ones available at the time, and staying outside the cantonment was not an option. My mother and I always had a feeling that something was off about the house, but my father never believed us. He was a stereotypical non-believer and always had an answer ready whenever something weird happened in the house.
Why did he sound like Golden Freddy?
As time passed, we all began to believe that it was just our minds playing tricks on us. But everything changed one evening. My parents had a habit of going for walks before dinner, and on one of these occasions, they left me at home alone. I had been playing video games and watching TV before falling asleep. I had woken up drenched in sweat and with a feeling of dread, and then I saw it. An ugly man with a horse's face.
An ugly man.
The lights were on, and I could clearly see his features, or lack of them. He had dirty blonde hair and completely whitened eyes. His jaw seemed to be broken and hung. He wore an old blue military uniform, and there was a broken rifle under his arm. He didn't seem happy about me being there, which was understandable since those old British soldiers were known to be terribly racist and would murder Indian men. I stared at the man, terrified, but he turned around and walked out of my room.
Okay.
I jumped out of my bedroom window and ran to my neighbor's house.
Yeet.
Since I didn't have a mobile and the landline was in the drawing room where the man had gone, I made a choice. My neighbors didn't believe me and thought it might have been an intruder and tried to enter the house. But I stopped them by begging them not to do so. Once my parents came to know about it, we left the house and made arrangements elsewhere. We found accommodation in another house just outside of the cantonment. The worst part was no one believed me except my mother. My father thought I had some kind of breakdown and made me see a therapist. After a while, almost 3 years later, I started to doubt my own story and thought it was just a thing I did to gain attention.
What?
But I was never wrong, as one night there was a massive commotion in the cantonment. The next day, my father asked in the office about it, and what he was told is still burned in his brain to this day. A family that stayed just 2 houses away from us was watching television when an ugly blonde man with a nash across his face entered and pointed his broken rifle at them. The woman had screamed and picked up her newborn and 3-year-old and ran out onto the streets while the husband had frozen. Nothing had happened, but the man had collapsed onto the ground and had severe issues afterward trying to deal with what he saw. My father couldn't believe what he was hearing. He still wonders what would have happened if I hadn't woken up or had the foresight to run to my neighbors. I visit the cantonment from time to see my friends, and I've heard that the man has become a common occurrence. They're planning to break down the houses there, but recently he was seen at the gates of the cantonment by the guards. I think he haunts the entire Air Force cantonment.
I mean, yeah. Why wouldn't he? All right. We're going to make our way over to Llama Arts. Shit. It's still Christmas time. Christmas has already passed, but we'll take a look at it.
It was November of 2006. I was a 16-year-old kid living in the town of Altoona, Iowa. I went to bed early one night because I had to work the early shift at McDonald's.
You're 16 and you work at McDonald's. What the fuck?
Downtown Des Moines, but I wasn't on a jog. I was running from something. As I ran around the corner of a building, I came face to face with my pursuer. A tall man wearing a trench coat and a top hat stood in front of me. The only thing visible of his face was his eyes. They were abnormally large with black pupils, and it looked at me as if it wanted something. After what felt like hours, he reached out his bony hand, as if he wanted me to go with him.
Yay! Come with me!
And after catching my breath, I peered around my room to see if I was safe. As I stood up from my bed, I noticed that I could see my breath. Feeling confused, I checked my window. It was latched shut. I then walked over and checked my vent. I could still feel warm air coming from it. As I sat back down on my bed, I tried to figure out what exactly was going on. That's when
Some
the figure
mystery
from my dream appeared at the foot of my bed.
Oh, fuck that.
I scrambled back to my headboard. What do you want? I asked, trying to hide the shakiness in my voice. With the same bony finger, it pointed at me. Growing up in a religious home, I believed what I was looking at was a demon. I told the creature to leave. It just waved its finger at me, and with a low voice.
Like, why is he doing it like that? Just
Never leave. Always here.
The creature then
fuck does that
stalked
even mean?
violently and disappeared. A feeling of nausea came over me, and I vomited on my floor.
What the
The
fuck?
last thing I remember was cleaning myself up and waking up to my alarm. It's been about a month since I had seen the top hat wearing man in my bedroom. The Christmas season was
Fuck you throw up ink for,
My
buddy?
parents weren't home because they got invited to some kind of event, so it was only me and my 3 sisters at home. I had to wake up early in the morning for work, so I decided to go to sleep. I rested my head on my pillow and closed my eyes. Not even 30 seconds passed until my sisters burst into my room and started singing obnoxious songs. This, of course, made me very angry, but I thought if I ignored them that they would leave me alone. This was not the case. As I pulled the blankets over my head, I started to feel the same cold feeling that I had in November. As the obnoxious singing subsided, I lowered the blanket below my eyes and saw the man standing in the corner of my room.
Fuck
With
you.
motion, he charged towards me.
Whoa.
When I finally came to, I found that my sisters had locked themselves inside the bathroom. As I knocked on the door, they told me to go away. I asked them what happened, and all they could say was Mom and Dad were on their way home. I looked down and saw that my hand was slightly bloody. Doors were in the bathroom door, and a broom was sticking out of the wall.
There's also 3 holes in the wall.
I found that there were knives stuck into the wall as well. The same wave of nausea passed over me, just like in November, and I threw up again.
More ink.
As I was cleaning up, my parents walked through the door. My father immediately walked over to me and gave me a good beating. Then he sent me to my room.
So he ignores the fact that there are knives in the wall and that your hand is bleeding. And that you were cleaning up an ink vomit.
I went to bed
Okay.
crying. Not from the beating. I was crying because of the confusion. I had no idea what was going on. The next morning, my sisters reluctantly sat next to me.
But this dude is 16 years old. He works at McDonald's and his dad still beats him. What the fuck?
And told me what had happened. They said I got angry and chased them down and tried to hurt them. They said my eyes were red to the point where they thought I was bleeding from them. They said I sounded like a different person. In 2011, that was the last time I saw the top hat wearing man. I just moved into a new apartment, and after a long, stressful day of unpacking, I took a shower and got ready for bed. As I started to drift off, I could feel that cold feeling again. I lifted my head and saw the man standing in front of me.
Nah, motherfucker, nah.
The man's eyes were red now. With a low voice, just like on that November night, it looked at me and said,
Never leave. Always here.
The fuck does that even mean, motherfucker? Alright. Well, that was certainly interesting. That's going to do it for today's video, guys. Hope you all enjoyed, and if so, be sure to leave a like on the video down below. If you're new around here, be sure to subscribe, turn on the notification icon so you don't miss a single video that I upload. This video was certainly interesting. This year has certainly been a memorable one for a lot of things. So, remember, the Force will be with you always, and your destiny lies with me. Obi-Wan knew this to be true. And have a happy new year.